Michael?
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good mate, good.
Welcome to the Finding Meaning in Work podcast. Firstly, thank you so much for doing this. I think I really wanted to do this with you because we have interacted before in a previous life, so to speak. And I think what stuck with me is just I think your sense of leadership in what you're doing and how you go about bringing that to I think not only the people you work here but the people who are coming through Future Energy Skills. So maybe before we start, do you mind telling us just a little bit about the role and a little bit about the organization?
Okay, yeah. First off, thank you for considering me for this podcast. Obviously, I've been in this role now for 3 years. I came to Future Energy Skills, which is an industry training advisory body, working in the energy sector. It's electro-technology up to gas, so I'd prefer to call it energy. We also have a front of house, which is a body or under deed. We deliver Energy Safe Victoria's independent licence assessments, and we've been doing that now for 29 years. And Future Energy Skills, in its previous or multiple iterations, has been around for now 32 years. Our main sponsors or governing board bodies are the ETU and the National Electrical Communications Association. And the front of house, we predominantly do about 80% of Victoria's licensed electrical assessments. And therefore we have people coming from all walks of life that are either completing their apprenticeship and then going on to that next step of their journey to become a licensed electrician, or they're members that are licensed electricians wanting to become electrical inspectors. Or the likes of the restricted electrical licence, which can cover refrigeration mechanics, plumbers and the like that want to do a basic disconnect, reconnect licence. And the main concentration is about safety first off. And secondly, we've really changed our focus to ensure that we look at the individual. So we treat every candidate that comes through as an individual and try and assist them as much as possible.
How long have you been in the role?
So I've been in this role for 3 years, and prior to that I was in the role as operations manager. And so I came to Future Energy Skills from Holmes Glen TAFE in December 2018. So with a remit to I suppose change the focus of how we do things at the front in the licensing area. And then over time the previous executive officer went on to brighter things and gave myself the opportunity to apply for the position, obviously go through the full interview process. And luckily enough I became the successful applicant. So
yeah, that's awesome. I think before we really get into this role and you know the crux of it, I'd like to kind of go back. So maybe think about, where did you grow up? Like, where did you go to school?
Okay, yeah. So look, I grew
Let's
up.
go with,
I grew up in Mackinnon, so in Melbourne, and I suppose I was a naughty boy, so I got sent to Catholic school. Went from St Paul's Primary in Bentley to St James, which was a boys' school up to year 10, a regional boys' school, and then the feeder was to De La Salle, so I ended up finishing my schooling at De La Salle. From De La Salle, I thought when I grew up I always wanted to be an ambulance officer, so went into nursing. You had to be back then 21 and have a full driver's licence.
Wow.
And then ended up working in nursing up until about 2023. Worked in emergency, and one of my other roles while I was still working in emergency was after hours coordinator at a smaller hospital. And I'll always joke and say I was emasculated and felt like doing something different, so I became an adult apprentice, but I also got sick of shift work, and so did the sea change thing and career change.
So, back to your younger days, like while you were being a naughty boy in the Catholic school, were there any subjects or anything that really spoke to you in school, or were you?
Look, I suppose a lot of the time it was around the humanities side of thing, and chatting the other day in a meeting of all things. They wanted us to reflect on any teachers that might have changed our lives, and there was always a teacher that throughout my years 7 to 10, his name was Victor Adams, who really had a focus on the individual and not seeing anything that was negative in the individual, trying to make them see the best in themselves and others see the best in that person. And instead of if they were on the naughty boy side, actually saying, well, why are they being a naughty boy? And then trying to address that and help them get through. So I suppose his teaching was always treat everyone how you'd like to be treated, and try and give them as much opportunity so that they can succeed.
Yeah. What subject did he teach?
He taught science and then biology. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. But I suppose what you remember from that wasn't so much the science and the biology, but just his way of
it was a
leading
whole.
students.
If like again, this is a bit of a nursing term, but the holistic approach that he took was not only to teach us well and teach us grounding in science. So I went on to enjoy biology in year 11 and 12.
There you go. Yeah.
But also to teach us that there's more to life and that you have to see the whole person.
Yeah. Wow. So from school, you said you were thinking about a career in as a paramedic, was it? Or
Yeah, as a paramedic. Yeah. So initially, when I first started nursing, I was told that psych nursing would be the good avenue to start with, and I did start out in psych nursing, but after I think a placement of 6 or 7 weeks at Larundel in their locked unit, I thought, I don't think I could be stuck in a ward the whole time that was locked down. So it made me then review the pathway that I was taking. So I transferred across from psych nursing into the general nursing stream.
Yep. How was that initially, like working as a nurse? And
yeah, look, it's very good. So, when we start looking at women in trades and minority groups, I think when I started nursing at Phillip Institute that became RMIT, I was one of 10 males out of 330 students.
Wow.
And back then, males were seen as emasculated and generally were tarred as queer if we were a nurse. So people looked at us and often treated us poorly, not expecting males to have the passion to look after people.
Yeah. Can you place it just in time, like around what year was this?
Yeah. So that was, I finished nursing in 1995. So I graduated from nursing in 1995.
Yep.
And while I was actually at uni, I did take a break, but I worked in a nursing home. So from about my first year onwards, I worked in a nursing home. So I was basically doing Division 2 nursing in a nursing home.
Yeah. And how did you deal with that criticism of, this is what blokes do, or
look, I took it in my stride, really. I thought it was funny, and it opened up, I suppose, especially going from. Well, I had 3 sisters and predominantly female cousins, but when you looked at it, I went through all of my high school in a heavily testosterone-laden environment, so all boys school, into nursing, and it just made me appreciate life and people more, I think. And to accept people for who they are. That's probably the greatest thing in nursing, especially when you're a minority, and just to enjoy people for who they are, to see them for the individual.
Yep. So I suppose that feeling, were there any doubts when it came to nursing, like when you were a young person thinking about what you should do?
Look, I always thought I'd be an ambulance officer. But look, I started to think that shift work wasn't for me. I don't like. Well, I don't mind night shift, but it doesn't like me because I don't sleep during the day. So I end up that heavily caffeinated that it becomes harder and harder the longer the shift rotation goes on to get sleep.
Yep. And then so you were a nurse for quite a while, eh?
Look, so from start to finish up until 23. So started nursing in 1992.
Yep.
And finished pretty much in 23. And look, I must admit, when I first went into the trade, it was going to be for a shorter term, and then I was going to look at doing my Masters in Public Health and start focusing on men's health in particular and apprenticeship health in general. So look, education often is a pathway for people to make sure they have the quality of life they want. And I understood that from the nursing background, that if people were well supported, they could achieve.
Yep.
And so therefore I felt, look, again, when I get back to that holistic view, looking at education and public health, and majoring on, and as we're doing now more so, with males often we didn't speak about our feelings and emotions and our illnesses, and I thought that was imperative. And again, working in a male-dominated trade, I could see that was lacking often in a lot of males. We don't talk about our problems, and so that's where I was thinking that I was going to head. But things fell the way they did, and I've ended up here.
Yeah. So I suppose there's, I mean, not to get too regimented, but there's a different way of looking at people from, I suppose, a blokey male point of view and I suppose a more female-centric point of view. When you look back on your career in nursing and now as a leader of this organization, like, are there leadership principles that you grasp from that time that you apply now?
Well, definitely in nursing. Look, you're taught, obviously, units around management, and essentially you're managing people. In managing people sometimes at their lowest point in their life when they're coming through a hospital system. And it's about being able to recognise the issues and look at the individual. And then especially if when I was nursing and I was running the hospital after hours, coordinating and taking responsibility for every patient that's in the hospital and every staff member that's working there, and then being able to liaise with the allied health and the doctors to ensure that the patient care was where it should be and that people were kept safe and well.
Yeah.
So that leadership quality was something that I suppose you learn to refine, especially when I came to working in emergency. So I worked in emergency for about 5 years, I think it was. And again, it's dealing with critical incidents and people's critical health issues, and then even minor health issues, and dealing with anything from loss to a minor illness. And then being able to work with the people and understand the people and empathise with them, and I think that's imperative in leadership qualities as well. Yeah.
So it's more. Is it more that empathy piece, or was it thinking on your feet in that emergency situation?
The whole lot. Yeah. So it's again being able to look at any situation and make it whether it's a clinical judgment or a critical judgment, or whether it's a business judgment, making that judgment and being able to pull on the resources that you've got to make sure that you're moving in the right direction. And the other part of what you learn in nursing is to empower people and to help them on their journey. And I think that's imperative, again, when you're running any organisation, that you empower your staff and that they take ownership of what they're doing.
Yep. So I suppose what made you think, I suppose after a couple of decades, that I think apart from the shift work, was there anything else that made you think, okay, this is I need to move on from nursing into?
It was just more that the shift work was getting to me, and we'd been travelling for a while, and then we came back to Melbourne and just thought maybe there's a little bit more to Melbourne and a little bit more to Victoria, and we went regional. So I lived down on Bass Coast, just out of Wonthaggi, or just in Wonthaggi, and that's when I made the career change. So finished my apprenticeship and then ran a small business. And again, that was sort of, it's management. It's running a business successfully. And then...
Can I ask what type of business?
Electrical contracting.
Okay.
Yeah. So did my apprenticeship as an electrician, and then went on to running a a small electrical contracting business, and then we moved back to Melbourne. I continued the contracting business, and what prompted me to move from being on the tools full time to then taking up a training role was that I had a bike accident. I had a stem on my handlebar snap, and ruptured my right AC joint and was laid up for 12 weeks. So undertook the Cert 4 then and finished that, and then went back on the tools for about 12 months, but my shoulder used to continuously ache, and then slowly transitioned into training.
Yep.
So I think in 2013, around October 2013, I took up a casual position at Holmes Glen.
Okay, yep. Also, going back to nursing again, sorry, we're going to jump around
That's
a bit.
right.
But say dealing in like a critical situation, in a stressful situation, are there any, you mentioned resources, but are there any internal tools or resources that you would rely on? Or?
Yeah, so look, it's to try and take any situation and try and, I suppose, take a deep breath and evaluate it quickly. Obviously, you can't spend too long making those decisions, and then trying to put all the tools that you've got in place. So whether it's from a clinical point of view or whether it's from dealing with individuals, put that into place and then get some action happening.
Yep.
And sometimes I suppose that's really an operational type of thing when you're working in nursing and you're working on the floor, so to speak, that it is all about operational and making critical clinical judgments, and then backing that up with the medical staff, obviously. But the role of my role now often would say that I need to take a step back and take a deeper breath and start analysing things a little bit more instead of making quick judgments.
Yep. Yeah. And I suppose in those critical situations, how do you recover from a mistake or a mistake in judgment?
Like anything, you have to, I suppose, process it, and then work on what went wrong and how it could be done better for the next time. And obviously, with nursing, errors can end up being detrimental to people's health, so you try and avoid that, obviously at all costs.
Yep.
But little minor issues or minor mistakes, and you'd analyse and think, how can I do that better? And what can I do better? So, if it's dealing with someone that's highly stressed, it's thinking, well, that didn't go as well as planned, and working with your team and obviously debriefing and then trying to work out, all right, well, how do I approach this next time? And look, that's probably the area of greatest growth is working with people and dealing with people from all different walks of life, coming in with all different presenting illnesses and etiologies, and then being able to process that and work with the person and respect that person, to help them on their journey.
What did you find most meaningful about nursing?
I really enjoyed helping people.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed seeing a positive change, even if it's a small thing, just being able to help that person.
Yep. And so maybe coming back to where we left off, you did your trade, you ran a small business, contracting business, and then you got a leadership role at Holmes Glen, was it? Or?
No, I started off teaching, so working casual, and I think I was only there for about 4 months, and then they offered me a contract. So I took a little bit of time deliberating over the contract, but my wife was quite keen for me to go into teaching because it meant that I had holidays with the kids and the like.
Yeah.
And I think I was teaching maybe for, again, 5 months or 6 months, and then I was approached and asked whether I'd consider going into a senior or applying for the senior educator role. And in hindsight, I probably would have said now no, because it meant that I lost the school holidays. So the whole reason for going into teaching, I lost that. But I embraced that as well. Like it was a challenge at the time. it was needing some change and needing an approach where we started looking at the individual again and looking at the employer needs and the apprentice needs.
Yep.
And being able to tie that in with all the requirements of the off-the-job training as well and some of the on-the-job requirements. And then again, looking holistically at each of the apprentices and working out anything else they might have needed in extra or additional support.
Yep. Can we just touch on that for a bit? Because I think even from our previous engagement from working with you, one of the terms that I think really stood out for me, which I thought was really kind of unexpected in a way, was this thing around pastoral care.
Yep.
And especially looking at the young people that come through here. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means and why? I suppose in a sense it's unique to Fez.
Yeah. Okay. So look, obviously, people come through Future Energy Skills at I suppose the pointy end of their apprenticeships or in their trade, and they're looking at progressing on to having the license. But often, as we all do, we come with additional layers that require some, I suppose, review and thought, and also then assistance. And from the pastoral care side of things, it might be that people are really struggling to get through the assessments. Sometimes they might have some additional layers and problems that we can't necessarily deal with professionally here, but we can assist them from the assessment point of view and look at the individual, and instead of saying, well, you just keep being unsuccessful, right, what's the cause behind being unsuccessful, and then try and give them as much support from that pastoral care side of our role. And what it meant was just totally switching from just being an assessment body, you come in for assessments, to actually looking at that person, that individual, and having a conversation with them. I think that's the biggest part, is actually having a conversation with a person as a person.
Yep. Can I ask what are some of the elements of that type of conversation?
I suppose it's being human, really. It's really just approaching a person with mutual respect and being able to listen to that person. And sometimes looking at, if someone's been unsuccessful multiple times, well, why are you being, what's the issue? What's the real issue behind? And sometimes when you unpack that, you'll find that they've had something that's gone with them all the way from primary school into high school and never been really discussed, and especially when they get into the trade, never discussed. And when it comes to the licence assessments, that's when sometimes it comes to a head, because the licence assessment is an external assessment that assesses you against what they call the critical capabilities in the Cert 3, for example, for the electricians assessment. And if they've been struggling with their learning all the way through, obviously when it comes to the assessment that is pieces of their Certificate 3, that's when it really comes to head. So, and I've sort of lost my train of thought there, but what it can often mean also is if there's been additional layers, especially for a young person and becoming an adult, they might have other issues that are going on external to their apprenticeship and to their licence assessments. And again, we need to take that into consideration. Well, what additional support or additional services can we possibly direct that person to?
Yeah. And can I ask, how do people respond to that?
I think generally really well.
Yeah.
Look, we do get some people that can still be agitated, but conversation again and the way you approach people will make that change. So, if you can show people that you're being supportive and that you're there to listen and try and find a solution, most people embrace that.
And just so, I'm guessing there's a high percentage of young men that
yes,
come
there
to
are. Yeah.
Just in terms of the young men today, what are you noticing about them?
I think they're more willing to talk now.
Yeah.
More willing to acknowledge that there are issues. That sort of "she'll be right, mate" is slowly eroding. And excitingly, I will say that,
Yeah.
you know, in the 6 years that I have been here, we're seeing a lot more females coming through, or women in the trade, so
Yeah.
which is fantastic.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So,
Mm.
and I think there's a cultural shift as well. So, you know, the expectations of what was expected of a male is changing.
Yep.
And like I said, people are more willing to discuss their issues and seek support.
Yep. Mm. So, just in your current role, then, what are the most challenging aspects of it right now?
I think the most challenging always will be working with people.
Yeah.
You know, when you've got excuse me, sorry.
That's all right.
Should have put the one on silent. Yeah, when you're working with people, obviously they come with a lot of baggage sometimes, and like I said, from the front of the assessment area, that would be where we have most of our issues.
Yep.
And again, it's looking at what the causation of those issues are, and again, like going back to nursing, looking at what the solutions are.
Yep. And also with this role now, are there any kind of personal tenets or personal philosophies or personal values that you bring to this role?
Look, I think generally it's just trying to have that compassion and understanding of people, and them working through any problems, whether they're a business problem or a personal problem. And again, I suppose, and I'll take a step back. So in my first year of nursing, they used to banter around this word holistic.
Yep.
And I hear that holistic term used on many fronts, but I suppose that was a really good philosophy in nursing. And from the personal point of view, is to look at anything from a holistic point of view.
Yeah.
So that you're not just looking at one narrow focus, you're looking at everything that's in that picture. So from the business point of view, it could be, you know, the people component, the business component. Obviously, keeping things in the black is important, but not just taking your eyes off the wider picture.
Yep. I mean, it sounds like this is something you carry with you since your high school teacher.
Yeah.
Was it David? Yeah.
No, Victor.
Victor, sorry.
Yeah. While we're talking, I'm just going to quickly make sure this phone's put on silent.
Sure.
Sometimes I used to hear bantered around about becoming older in age and forgetting to do things, and sometimes I think it's true. You think, it's funny with technology.
You and me both. Yeah.
With technology, sometimes this phone will learn behaviours and go on to silent mode as soon as I enter the building, and other times it chooses not to. And obviously today it's chosen not to. So look, getting back to Victor, I think that was a good grounding. And also, I think a lot of those traits you bring from your family as well.
Yeah. So currently with this role now, for you personally, what are the most meaningful aspects of your job?
The people, the people, and the fact that, you know, not losing sight of things that industry is made up of people. Industry and society is made up of individuals. So look, you know, if we're doing development and training, for example, obviously it's more of a larger picture, and sometimes the training can be rigid, but when you look at it, just to say, right, well, is this the best fit for everyone? Sometimes it's not going to be the best fit for everyone, but trying to contextualise it so it suits most people is important. And then being able to also identify where there's issues where you might have to make some reasonable adjustments to help individuals through.
Yep.
But I always will never lose sight of any business and any industry is about the people, and it's only as good as the people that work in it.
And speaking of people that work for your organization itself, is there anything you do to kind of foster that sense of purpose or that sense of...
Well, I think, again, look, you know, I've heard that term, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And I think it's true. Look, you know, you can have the best strategies in the world, but if you don't have the culture, then you're not going to succeed. And I think it's really important to ensure that you've got a healthy culture in anything you do, and a supported culture.
Yep.
And also buy into your strategy, that your team's pivotal to helping develop the strategy.
Yep.
And then help deliver that strategy. So if you've got the culture and people understand where we're heading, then you will succeed.
Yep. Has the culture here has it always been that way, or were there times where changes need to be made?
Look, before I came on board, they recognised that there was a need for change.
Yep.
And so the wheels were already well in motion when I came. Yeah, and I think we've just built from that.
Yep. Can I ask, what was wrong before you came, and what needed to, and how did you change that?
Well, from the point of view for staff, we didn't interact with the candidates as well as we could have. It was more seen as that sort of authoritarian role as an assessor.
Yep.
And we didn't actually stop to listen to the candidates as much as we probably should have.
Yep.
And I suppose just simply not reflecting on how we feel as candidates, because we've all been candidates, and we often are, and we're often students, and just looking at it from our point of view as well, and then trying to then make sure we relate to the candidates coming through. And I think that's a big cultural shift that we put in place, was looking at everyone coming through, like I said, as an individual, and helping support them on their journey.
Yep. And I suppose, the people coming through, they're studying to be electricians, gas workers, etc. Do you get a sense of why that's important to them? Or?
Well, it's a licensed trade, and often, it's setting themselves up for their future. So it's their career path they've chosen for now. And obviously the license is the final piece of the puzzle for their 4 years as an apprenticeship. That the next step is finish your apprenticeship and obviously go on to be a licensed electrician or a licensed electrical worker, whether it's a restricted license or a full license.
Yep.
And so it's important to make sure that we support them as much as possible on that journey.
Yep. And I suppose, looking over just through this conversation now, chatting about your history, I think, I get the sense just from your teacher in school to your career in nursing to now, there's this real, I suppose, sense of empathy and leadership, making sure that the person is listened to, providing that pastoral care. And maybe this is just from my perspective, being outside the industry, it seems kind of foreign to the industry. Would you agree with that? Or?
No, I think it's starting to change.
Yep.
Yeah. Look, I think it really is starting to change, and I think I'm going to sound like my grandparents, but as the new generations come through, I think their expectations are really driving a lot of the change as well. I think originally, I suppose, it was a different mindset coming into this sector, looking especially at how we approach the individual. But I think the expectation from those coming through now is that they're given support, and really the key message is they're not alone on their journey, that there are people there to help them, even if they're stumbling and just can't get across that finish line. We're here to support them and get them through. And like from a licensed assessment point of view, we help them to a point, and then obviously help them feel as prepared as possible. And then the final part of the journey is to make sure that they feel safe and confident to get through the assessments and pass.
Sure, yeah. And thinking back to when you did your license, what would you say has been the biggest change since?
Communication. So once upon a time you set your assessments, there wasn't a lot of communication. It felt a little bit hostile. The environment probably felt a little bit hostile. And then sometimes you could wait for a period, and sometimes it seemed like a long period of time before you got any response on how you were with that assessment. So, and that's a big thing that we've changed as well. So any of the one-on-one practical assessments, we give them feedback, whether it's positive or negative. We give them the feedback straight away, just to tell them how they've gone on the day.
Yep. And how do I frame this? What's your hope for the young people that come through here once they graduate?
That they go on to have a successful career, and whether they stay in their career or in this career for a short time or a long time, that they feel that they've been well supported, and that they can then go on to be industry leaders. And realistically, they're the future of our industry, and obviously then the future of everything else that's joining the industry in their life as well. So you know, they could go on to be leaders within the community as well. So just making sure that they're, again, given as much support as possible.
And are you, I suppose, hopeful for the future of the industry, the way it's evolving?
Yes, I am. Yeah. Obviously, the electrical industry and the energy sector, full stop, is a big piece of that strive for net zero. And it's an evolving industry. In the short period of time that I've been in this industry now, you'd almost say it's very much like the mobile phone from when it first came, and it's just keeps growing and getting smaller and more technologically advanced. It's the same in the electrical sector. You know, I started out my apprenticeship, I suppose, it's probably not the right term, but de-electrifying a lot of homes. So going in and saying, well, you've got all electrical appliances, and we were taught that gas is more efficient and cheaper for the end user. And now it's gone that full shift, and I've said that in the past, that it's gone that full shift back to electrifying installations and moving away from gas and moving towards that cleaner, renewable energy sector, which has been fantastic.
Yeah. And what's your view on, you know, the evolution of technology? Are you hopeful in that regard?
I am. Yeah. Look, I think a lot of it is making our lives more efficient, and hopefully will lead to, in generations to come, the ability to spend more time with the things that are really important in life as well. So, you know, embracing, you know, not only work culture but life culture as well.
Yep. And just in terms of your personal future, what do you see in store for yourself?
Look, obviously I'll be in this journey for a little while longer, and then never knowing what I'm going to do when I grow up. I would like to see myself probably working with people in a different role, and whether that's going on to finally doing the Masters, or just shifting focus more into that person-to-person as opposed to assessment type environment. That's probably where I'll head. Yeah.
Or do you see, is there any field or industry or career where you think leadership is lacking or needs that holistic pastoral care?
I think all walks of life need that holistic review, and you know, pastoral care really is just about looking after individuals and understanding individuals and making sure they feel supported, I think, more than anything. And I think that's important. And I think that's sometimes, yes, does lack in some circles, but
Cool. This is the final question. The name of this podcast is Finding Meaning in Work. So for you, what does the term meaningful work mean, and how do you find meaning in work?
So meaningful work is making a difference. So and having a culture and a team that's happy, and then seeing positive and I would say at times happy candidates, but you know, making a positive change to the people in the industry we work for. So look, you know, Future Energy Schools isn't just about assessments. We're also about that workforce and development piece, and ensuring that we're helping industry again, which ends up helping individuals, making that positive change for the future.
Great. Well, thank you so much for this, Michael. I understand you're really busy, and I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to doing this.
Thank you again for considering me. It's been a great honour, so thank you. I hope it has been a worthwhile podcast.
Oh, for sure. I think I certainly have learnt a lot, and I think I continue. It's something that maybe I struggle with in my leadership journey. Like, where do I find I think mainly a sense of who I am and how I can apply that. And I think what I've got from you is just really, I think, digging into that personal journey from since you were in school, really, to really making sure, the world is a better place because of that.
Yeah, I think that's a really good philosophy. That's a philosophy that I've tried to embrace.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Michael.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. If you're enjoying and are learning from this podcast, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. A great zero-cost way to support us is to leave a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you are feeling extra generous, it'd be great if you could leave a comment or feedback on our Apple Podcast or YouTube pages. Or you could email your comments and feedback to me directly at rahul@disruptivebusinessnetwork.com. That's RAHUL at disruptivebusinessnetwork, all one word, .com. Finally, a big shout out to our producer Dan Scahill for his work on the keys and to Vashti Civil for writing the original music for our theme. Until next time, this is your host, Rahul Sones, signing off. Bye.